Hello folks, welcome back to the UK Game Expo live stream. I'm still Millie, I'm still joined by Kate, but we also have some new guests with us, returning guests, which is exciting to say. From Phase Shift Games, we have Jason and Gregory joining us. How you doing, folks?
Hello, good. Good. How's everyone on your end?
Yeah, we're lamenting that it's already October, but it's only October has been the running theme at the minute.
Fair.
Pumpkin
Yes,
spice.
although after our last guest, we're also lamenting the fact that Mills and I have instant coffee rather than amazing, artisan coffee and things. But I imagine coffees or tea is needed at your end, isn't it, Jason? What time is it over there?
In droves. Well, yeah, I mean, any time of the day I'll take the coffee, but what is it, 8 a.m. right now? So it's not too bad, but I am on a large number 2 at this point. So
Excellent.
Gregory, you're a little more local, aren't you?
I am. So I'm based in London, from Manchester originally, and every year, well, it's been about 3 or 4 years we've been driving up for the expo. So it's always huge highlight of the year for us.
It's awesome.
It's really exciting to speak to everyone today.
Yeah. So we've got Phase Shift Games here because we spoke to you guys a little bit before Virtually Expo. We were talking about Dungeon Drop and some things that were on the way. And you were, I remember, Jason, you were teasing things about liches and all kinds of stuff going on then.
yes.
And then more things are on the way, which is, I guess, a way. So we've met you, Jason. Can you introduce Gregory for us? And then, Gregory, can you tell us a little bit what you're getting up to with Phase Shift?
Yeah. And there may be a little piece of this that you're all not even aware of. And that is that Greg, and for Darren and I at Phase Shift Games and Greg, our love affair essentially began at UK Games Expo this year. So we met him through your virtual event. He reached out to us and, with this game idea that he had been, it's more than an idea. It's been tried and true for 2 years or so. And he can explain more of it, but we basically saw it and said, holy cow, if this thing was reskinned in the Dungeon Drop universe, this is like a slam dunk. So we'll talk more about what that became and how that's now part of our active Kickstarter. But so Gregory reached out to us because presumably, Greg, I think you saw our virtual stand. I don't know if you were watching some of our live streams or whatever, but saw that there might be a really good fit, and there was.
That's exactly it. I mean, I've been lining up for the expo for a year. I've been working on this game for it's about 19 months now, and last UK Expo I thought, right, next year is going to be the one I'm going to be able to come here and pitch this. In the meantime, we've been to Dragon Meet and Aircon, and then suddenly the expo is cancelled, and it's a huge hole in the schedule. And when they announced it, it was just a miracle, the Virtually Expo, and actually it gave us more opportunities to speak to designers than to publishers we might have had previously. So suddenly, at the end of the day, it was the end of Sunday. They just finished about the 12th live stream of the weekend. It had been going on continually. And when they'd normally be packing up, they can immediately turn off and say, right, I can play your game on Tabletop Simulator. And we just jumped on board. So it was incredibly lucky.
Wow.
Wicked. That's an amazing story. Thank you. We didn't know that. That's actually really cool.
That is
awesome.
Yeah, I guess I never considered all the times that folks like yourself, Jason, are sort of tied up with putting things back in the boxes, and that itself eats into your time of networking and selling and taking part. Yeah, the administrative side, and with, like Gregory said, you literally just go boop. I'm free with a virtual event. And
I won't lie, there was a little hesitation. I'm like, well, it has been a long weekend of a lot of talking, a lot of live streams. Am I really up for a game? And I said, but he's going to have to teach me. I just listen and play. So I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah. It's like being a punter, being able to do that, but with your own company and stuff. That's very cool.
Gregory, had you like practiced your pitch, and were you nervous at all?
Always nervous. I mean, we've pitched to a few different companies, but when I came to the expo, there were sort of just 3 or 4 main companies. Phase Shift was one of the big ones we were really hoping to speak to. So I'd had a couple of other streams over the weekend, and it's an interesting experience because it's a game which is we'll talk about it a bit more, but it is a sort of bluffing bidding game where you're staring in each other's eyes and trying to figure out what the other person's got going on, and it's an interesting experience trying to translate that without having even eye contact. If it's just going by voice, hopefully a little bit of Skype. But I'd worked on the pitch a fair bit, and it seems to work okay online.
Oh, it seems like it certainly did, because Jason seems so excited to share information about the game. It's infectious. It didn't seem it did. Again, we're falling back into that British board game industry of not bigging ourselves
like,
up.
if it's wicked and awesome, say it's wicked and awesome. That's okay.
Yeah.
I
think we're just too humble in the UK. We're just not good at going, no, this is epic. So maybe Jason can give us some lessons in telling us all about something that's really epic. What's on? You've got it on Kickstarter right now. I saw that it launched at the 6th of October. What's going on?
All right, so the Kickstarter is really for 2 games. One is an expansion for Dungeon Drop, which obviously we have a large built-in audience there. We had a very successful first campaign, and then over the course of the last year, we've got 25,000 copies in distribution, and we're doing another print run for another 10,000, which is going to be in 5 different languages. So it's going great. We couldn't be more thrilled with how that has developed. But then once we latched on here with Greg, at the time the game was called Not So Fast, and it was like a mafia themed game, which was cool, but obviously that didn't fit our universe. But realistically, that whole concept of what he said, people are sitting around the table kind of bluffing, and then there's a strong set collection aspect. And basically what we did was we said, well, holy cow, like something that Darren and I love doing is stringing together a universe that has different segments of a story. So Dungeon Drop is very clearly a traditional dungeon romp with a very unique hook with the drop.
Yes.
But it's a dungeon romp. You're going into the dungeon with fantasy heroes, and you're trying to steal loot and avoid the monsters and maybe slay the dragon, get a lot of points. It's a very traditional dungeon romp in that regard. And this idea it was like an instant spark for both Darren and I. In fact, I was a little concerned at first. I played it with Greg first, and then I don't know if it was later that day or the next day, I pulled Darren in, and he really doesn't usually latch on to themes like the kind of thievery and mafia, like that kind of theme. So there was a little suspension of disbelief, but it was instant. It was like, holy cow, this game is so approachable and accessible, just like Dungeon Drop. So it has that synergy. It plays in about the same time, about a 20-minute game. So it has that synergy, and it could instantly be the story of those heroes coming out of the dungeon, going back to town, sitting in the tavern, drinking ginger brew, and just kind of debating with each other who stole the most loot, or disagreeing about who actually killed that monster or slayed the dragon. And so it's this like one-upmanship kind of game where you're constantly bidding and outbidding each other, trying to be the person, trying to be the hero with the most epic legends about what you did in the dungeon. And it's just perfect. It sits so well. And now it's this continual story. In fact, we're even coming up with hopefully a way that when you finish a game of Dungeon Drop, the whoever won that game, that their race, their character can kind of hold over to the beginning of Tavern Tales, which is what we do in the other game.
A nice.
So there's not that it's an integrated game. It's a totally different game, but they use all the same heroes and treasure. And so there's subtle ways that we can bridge the gap technically as well, which is super exciting.
That's amazing. It's just like the pub episode and things after the adventure. That's very, very cool.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it just worked really well. It fit the game. We didn't have to change a single mechanic. I think maybe we changed a 1 to a 2 on one card, but like the game was solid. Now, of course, we worked with Greg over the last 2 months to like, what could we do? This is a Kickstarter, so we're gonna have stretch goals, we're gonna have add-ons, we're gonna have all these cool things that we could do. So like, what are the things in this game model? We're used to dropping stuff on the table, so we had to work with Greg a lot on that.
So was it hard for you, Gregory, to sort of come up with these things that you could stretch goal, or was it, had you I find sometimes that folks are like, well, I had an idea for including this in the game, but I didn't quite have the opportunity to with this iteration. Was there a designer notebook that you were like, well, actually?
I did have some ideas in the background. It's funny because when I was designing, I was always thinking to pitch it to someone, it's sort of a card game. It's 100 cards. I'll keep it as small as possible. I'll just make it really easy product to put across. But I had all these ideas in the background of what I would do if I had my own deluxe version. You'd have some kind of game board and you'd have special pieces and you'd have extra cards and loot sets. But I thought initially it's just got to be 2 sets of cards that fit in a double tuck box, go
Yeah.
through a letterbox. Gave it to Jason. He suddenly says, well, hang on,
Mhm.
this is a much bigger game. This is a much bigger experience. We can really bring this out. And so I had a list of about 5 or 6. The first sort of stretch goals we've come up with so far, they were all mostly the ones that I sort of had already in the back pocket. But we didn't realize that we would need 20 stretch goals and the amount that we have to keep generating with. But the fact that we've got this product, so we're working with Dungeon Drop now, so all of the characters suddenly come in. So you go, okay, we have Molman. He's a character who does this kind of activity. What could that represent in this game? And suddenly it opens up your mind in a completely different way. And some others I can't say at the moment, but lots of really interesting things I never thought of.
Oh, that's it's wonderful to have to hear that kind of synergy, the energy between Jason and yourself bouncing backwards and forwards to just make something a little more elevated than. I'm not suggesting that the 100 cards wasn't a brilliant game, because obviously it was. It got Jason and Darren excited, but the energy between you lifts the game that little bit more and makes
Well, I'll throw this out too. I mean, if fate is a force, holy cow, it was at play here, because our game Dungeon Drop, the first version, has 15 heroes. And Greg's game, when he was pitching it to us in its state at that point with its mafia theme, had 15 standard characters in the game. Like literally it was the same exact number. And then our expansion that we were planning had 3 additional races that were going to be added without stretch goals. And Greg's game had 3 elite specialists in his. So it was like, well, God, these numbers are literally identical. And then so what we were able to do, and this is something else I super love, some of our stretch goals. So in the campaign, we unlocked, I don't know, let's say the Lavaling race. Well, that Lavaling race unlock now includes the race and the meeple for Dungeon Drop and the new elite character for Tavern Tales. It's just 1-to-1 at this point. So they are truly 100% in sync across the board, which is just really cool. So the stretch goals are now even cross-platform and able to bring value to both games.
How, like in terms of when you're making a Kickstarter, how daunting is coming up with the additional stretch goals? Do you ever sit there and kind of go, okay, no, another 5 then, guys, let's go. Like
last time around, it felt more daunting. This time around, I think we were a little more prepared, just given the experience the first time. But yeah, that first campaign, I mean, we hoped to get, I forget the exact numbers. I think we were like, well, we really, really need like at least 30 to 40,000 to kind of break even. And then if we get to 60,000, 75,000, that would be awesome. Like that's all our expectations were. And then we got up over $250,000. So yes, during that first campaign, we were like, what do we, there's so many backers and they want more stuff. And like, you know, we were very, very careful. Something that's super important to us. We've seen so many Kickstarters where they just keep pouring new stuff on the fly and it's untested and it's not fully thought out. And then they cram it in the box because 15 days later, you're trying to get files to the manufacturer. We were not going to do this. So like one of the big unlocks, for example, that we said, well, here's something big that we could do. It could be like a big stretch goal and let it go on for a couple, you know, like 20,000 more, 30,000 more. And we still hit those. And that was unlocking solo mode. And but what we said was we would not print the rules in the main rule book in the box. What we did was we had a page and we put a QR code and a link that said, if you want the solo rules, go to faceshiftgames.com and download them, or the QR code. And we did that. Of course, most people would prefer it in the box, but we said, we're not going to do that disservice to you. If we did that, it would be unrefined and not tested enough to be worthwhile. And that was absolutely the right decision. So of course, some people are like, well, I wish it, had the rules in the box. So do we. And now this campaign, what we're doing is we're putting that solo rulebook, now that it's fully refined and tested and awesome, we are printing that rulebook and putting it in the expansion box for free, so that everyone who now gets the new expansion gets that kind of upgrade as well. And we're even reprinting some original cards that we've tweaked the rules. So we're doing right by our backers from the first time around, making sure that they get the best of the best, now, even retroactively. So yeah, it was more daunting the first time. This time we came into this with a lot of good stuff planned, and we're not exhausted yet.
Oh, good.
Got a
It's
little
a
more
very
to go.
responsible way of doing it as well.
I mean, you mentioned including the solo rules there, which is a really important thing right now. A lot of folks are kind of taking more to solo gaming due to not being able to get out and around and everywhere. It's really exciting. I don't think we touched on it last time when we were talking about Dungeon Drop, that there is a solo mode that you can just get, because it looks, I'll find a photo now and share a picture of the Dungeon Drop game, but it's just oh look, there we go.
Wow.
Yeah, no, having talked to you guys, I went and got Dungeon Drop, and it's wicked, and so the solo mode is something that I'm going to try out, and then hopefully this weekend maybe play it with some mates or something. So that's the plan.
Awesome.
Healing does 2, not 1. Is that right?
Healing actually does 3, not 1.
3,
and that's
3,
one of
not
the
1.
things.
That's
so we
it.
made that change, and now in the new expansion, we're going to include the updated rulebook, the updated or the brand new solo rulebook, and there's actually going to be about 14 to 18 cards that we reprint from the original. So like the player aid, your player aid right now says healing potions heal 1 damage, or however it's worded, and now it'll say 3. So like it's a subtle thing, and a lot of other games are like it's just errata, and you just put a PDF online. But we never. This was something super important. We didn't want backers from the first game, from the first campaign, to feel like they had an out of date copy or a second rate copy, because when we reprint, and we will, it's going to have all the updated rules. But we never wanted people that backed us the first time around to feel like they want to sell that and get the other. It's like, no, you need to love that copy, and we're going to update it and get it up with the latest.
Wicked.
Include everything with you. So we can see, folks at home can see the little dungeon board, little raised kind of set that everything goes into, and the new boxes. So Tavern Tales and the expansion for Dungeon Drops, they're all a similar size kind of. In terms of
that same cubicle size that Kate was just holding up.
Yeah, it's very cute actually. It's super cute as a little box. So it's not quite as big as my head.
This was something else that was a conscious decision. Tavern Tales, for example, could have, as Greg said, just been a poker tuck box. But we have this iconic cubicle box that Dungeon Drop had that starts to, like, people love that cute size, and it's unique on the shelf. And so, we just, and Drop Drive is our next game that we're going to come out with early next year, hopefully. And that will also have that same cubicle size. So in a way, it's just kind of like our line of small box games. And we have big box games planned as well. That's a whole other topic. But we really like that cubicle size. It has some character to it that we think fits really well.
Yeah, this definitely is we've got a picture of the Tavern Tales set up on the with the cards all out and everything there. It does look like it's got, you can see that there's familiar style things. So there's cards laid out in like a tableau and bits and pieces around, and then that's quite a different from the box and the dropping the dungeon and that kind of stuff. So what's going on with Tavern Tales not being the dice, more card based? Tell us a little bit about the game.
Greg?
Happy to tell you about the game. So the game is sort of 2 mechanics really fused together, and there's a lot of games that sort of put these things together, but not quite in the same way. So it's the first thing is the set collection aspect, which is something I'm always been a really big fan of. The Sushi Go kind of games, Colorado, even sort of Lost Cities kind of games, where you are trying to collect different types of things, and it's a race against other people. That's something I really like. And also the bluffing bidding kind of games is something I've always just had a big passion for, sort of that going around the table. Games like Raj, even Cash and Guns, where you're sort of facing off against each other and you have that bluffing element. And there are quite a lot of games which combine the two, and you will sort of bluff your way to success, win cards. And then at the end of these games, there tends to be quite a lot of adding up and counting. You don't necessarily have that connection to the numbers where you'll find at the end you're actually getting a calculator out. And I thought, is there a way to sort of put these two things together where the whole way through, every card that you're getting is influencing your next decision? So in the game, every card you get, the scores are added on immediately. Everyone around the table can see how many points you're on, and they know if the next card you get is a relic, this is worth 4 points for you. It's worth 6 points for you, which is going to win the game for you. It's only worth 1 point for me, but I do want to stop you. And so it sort of feeds into the bidding of how much people actually want to bluff, and it's really nice synergy between the two.
So it's about bluffing about the treasure you found whilst you were exploring the dungeon earlier,
and the monsters that you've killed.
Yep.
Exactly. So you are talking about heroes that you've worked with previously. So you've been in this dungeon, you've been trying to steal a relic, and you've been trying to steal a pink gem, and you were working with Molman. He was the person who helped you to get in. And that's the story that you tell to your companions around the table in the tavern. But then someone else says, actually, no, that wasn't you. That was me. I was there with Boblin, and Boblin is the person who helped me get in, and that is my blue gem you're talking about. They go, oh, hang on a second. I think that might be my story. And it keeps going round and round. And people have the opportunity. You have this hand of the heroes. So they are the people you're holding and trying to bluff with. It goes around the table, and you could be very quiet. You could sit out and say, okay, maybe I didn't say anything. But if it comes back around to you and you get another opportunity and you haven't missed your chance, you can then come in at the last minute and steal it. And that is sort of the bidding method in a nutshell. It will keep going round. You can pass like you would in poker, where you would go, I'm out. But then you can come back in again and completely confound everyone.
That's awesome.
In a way, I don't know if you have if paintball is popular over there in the UK.
Yes,
but
absolutely,
okay.
yes. Yeah.
So I remember talking to the organizers of one of the paintball fields in the area here, and he's like, yeah, it's so hilarious. Every time people start coming back down the path from the battlefield, and they're like, yeah, I took out 3 people, I took out 5 people. He's like, if we add up all of those numbers, it's like triple the number of players in the actual game. Everyone's lying. Like everyone is dramatizing just how much.
Super excited. Yeah.
It's great.
And
that's
there's
awesome.
that sort of feeling around the table to get through everything. So you mentioned, Jason, that the winner from Dungeon Drop might get like first player, is it, or first?
Well, that was the easy way to go, but because the races are identical. So, for example, you might be, Greg used the example of the Moleman. You might be a Moleman rope master in Dungeon Drop, and if you were the one who won the game, one of those subtle ways that we could tie things over, in fact, we could do it for all players, is that you start with your hand of cards. There's a certain hand size in Tavern Tales, and you get a free Moleman to add to your hand. So you may have one extra card to start with, an extra choice. Now, everyone else knows that, so it's kind of exposed information, but you have the bonus of that extra card, and it might synergize with other cards in your hand. We also may try to think of how we can tie in treasure. So, for example, the relic is one of the treasure pieces in both games. And if you ended Dungeon Drop and you were the winner of Dungeon Drop with the relic in your stash, then maybe you can start with a relic over in Tavern Tales. We got to balance all this out, but just it's subtle. It's not a big thing, but it's a cool continuity from one story to the next. So we're looking for those little connection points.
I think it feeds nicely into the theme, because obviously folks who love that dungeon crawl style like the idea of a whole kind of campaign of this is the story we told and this is what happened, and then it all gets a little bit out of hand around the tavern table because not everybody remembers. It feeds in lovely with each other.
Exactly. I like it. It's that whole you and I remember Budapest quite differently.
Yes.
Yes.
That whole thing.
I need to know.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for this thing, Greg?
It was actually going to our local games pub, which I don't think exists now as a games pub, but just around the corner where we are in Shepherd's Bush, one suddenly opened up, and we were going in there playing lots of these kind of deceit bluffing games, Cash and Guns was one we saw for the first time, Spyfall, and I just really enjoyed the sort of the interactive nature of it, how it really works for a new group of people. And I just had that, and I had this idea that the set collection was just something we could build out and make a slightly more tactical game. And when I grew up, we were always playing chess and bridge, and it just felt like we could make it just that little bit more mathematical, a little bit tighter, and that it would sort of feed back into making the bluffing that much more exciting when you really know what the stakes are that you're going for, and the stakes just get higher and higher.
Have you always been the sort of person to make their own little versions of games and design left and right and that kind of stuff?
That kind of stuff. When I studied maths at university, and I was sort of doing little bits on the side, and game theory it always really interested me. Back in school, I had a graphical calculator. This is going back 20 years, and I remember making a little Deal or No Deal game on the calculator, which is just like I can't find. I don't know if it still works on there. It might be dead now, but I really hope it does. But it's just a little logic tree where you start off. You've got all the boxes filled in, and then you pick a box at random. It will delete it, and then the banker will sort of make a fake bet for you. He will sort of give you an amount based on the average, a bit of variance, and go all the way through the game. And I was always really interested in board games, and I sort of picked it up again 3 or 4 years ago. I started going back to the Mind Sports Olympiad, which I hadn't done for another 20 years when I used to play chess, and just started getting back into Perudo Liar's Dice, which is another fantastic bluffing game. And first year I went there, I just went for that competition. I came back the next year, I did 3, and then the year after, I was there all week doing 17 competitions, and just really got back into it in a big way. So I've been hooked again, and so going to the expo for the last few years, the game collection has gone from just those 2 or 3 from Rummy Cup to I now have too much and I can't afford to buy anything else.
A little bit like Ready Steady Roll, who was saying that it's a 1 game in, 1 game out rule now. That's what they have.
Yeah. Oh, that's the rule?
That's the rule. They filled their board game
always
cafe
strikes
up
me as
too
sad.
much.
I can't subscribe to that.
No, I'll just make the shelves higher behind me.
Yeah. I like the 1 game in part.
Yeah, 1 game in.
Yeah.
I'm currently suffering from too much stuff, not enough house is my problem right now. I've got so many things everywhere. So you've always had this kind of love of designing and gaming and picking and the logic behind it all. Does this mean you've got like a little book, a little notebook here with like a dozen more things to kind of think on?
In terms of other games, there's a few more that are in the background. I started a couple of years ago with a few other designs. I made a board game, which I haven't even mentioned to Jason yet, which was I bought online an actual board game. I wrote everything out in pencil. It took about 4 months. I wrote about 300 cards for it. I looked through the rule book the other day, which is about 20 pages long, and then we played it for the first time. Went, okay, this is too much. It doesn't quite work, and sort of not afraid to sort of push things back. And so I went through a few little card games, and then suddenly this one clicked, and we thought, oh, this actually seems quite fun. We'd like to play this again. And then I started getting involved with Playtest UK, which is another incredible resource. So every week I would try and be off on the right days from work to go to them playing on Embankment. They would meet up back when we could still do it. And every week we'd just go and playtest the game and change it a little bit more. And after about 6 months, it was ready to start taking to the festivals and pitching. But it has been a long project. But there are still those projects in the background, which hopefully we'll come back to. And when this is sort of all locked off and it's sent off to make the box, then we'll be definitely looking at the next one.
When you've had a moment to breathe.
Yeah, haven't had a moment so far since we started. I mean, I think we were taken aback a little bit by the how quickly it took off on Kickstarter. Even with Dungeon Drop having done so well, you think this is still an expansion, it's still a new product, and a companion game that no one knows anything about. And the response on the first day, we just blew through all the stretch goals that we had initially. So it hasn't really stopped so far. Halfway through the campaign, we're still had an hour and a half conversation with Jason yesterday, just going through various little things. We're working on this 100%.
Yep.
I mean, Playtest UK must have set you up for the additional kind of feedback that you get from because Kickstarter backers are often quite engaged. They're as passionate about everything as you are, which can be a little bit jarring when you're like, I don't know you. How do you love my game as much as me? What is going on? So Playtest UK, did that help you kind of be ready for this sort of feedback that you can get through Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think so. I think if anything, the game designers, they should be quite sensitive, but they can be crueler than anyone else. And when they don't like it, they will really tear the game apart. So the first time I took this game, it's now 3 to 5 players. The first time I took it to Playtest UK, I had it as 6 players with more locations, and it was a little bit all over the place. It wasn't reined in, and they absolutely destroyed it. They said, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't get the cards I want. I hate it. And you just have to be very resilient and understand what is sort of behind that. We figured out the little bits that they liked and slowly tweaks, and they got kinder over time. But with Playtest UK, we got to go to Dragon Meet and Aircon and the UK Games Expo to do the playtest there with real people. And the playtest, designers are real people as well, I hope. But with the general public,
the general public, people who aren't necessarily in the industry to play the game.
And the general public seem to be a little bit kinder, I would say.
Yeah.
But
you need that harsh feedback to really just. It's a waste of everyone's time if you're just getting everything's all rose-colored glasses. So
yeah, I was going to say if it sometimes feels, and I've spoken to others about it as well, if the designers in the playtest group don't give you this. What did Dranda Storm say? Dranda Games say the Solar Storm was just ripped to bits.
Yeah, he said, but I think they're because where they got it tested, he said that they had quite kind people, so they basically told him that his game was complete nonsense, but in a really nice and constructive way, which meant that he went back and completely redid it. So yeah, which is a good thing.
But if you'd never got that and they'd all went, oh yeah, it's nice, then we wouldn't be sat here now talking about Tavern Tales being part of this epic Kickstarter that it is. So on the one hand, you have to kind of, and then like Jason says, if you don't get that, then you don't get the next step.
No, absolutely. So can you tell us more about the Kickstarter? It clearly seems to be flying madly from day one. So
yeah, I think we crossed over the it's all in US dollars, so the 160,000 mark last night, which is
congratulations,
just, amazing. And we're only 7 days in, so really, really exciting to see it at least in the same ballpark as the last one. And again, going into this, before Tavern Tales, let's just say it was just the Dungeon Drop expansion. Expansion Kickstarters, generally what we hear is about 35% of the original in terms of adoption, right? Now, the good news is we had more people than just the 7,600 backers, because then we sold another 15,000 copies in retail. So there's a lot of people out there, and we still have to attract more of them. But we weren't going into this expecting to get the same level of adoption as the last campaign. So once again, we came into it with lower expectations. Certainly hope to have great, and exactly what we're having now. We bolstered the campaign in different ways. So one of the things that we went into this knowing without any question is that people loved, you guys have already talked about it, the mats, the dungeon mats, and the walls that surround. So you can literally transform your table into a legitimate dungeon, and it looks beautiful. In fact, we made those mats to be convertible or compatible with other like 25mm war games or Dungeons and Dragons. They're 1-inch hexes, 1-inch squares.
Oh, cool.
And so you can use it for any fantasy game you want. It's got our logo the small logo in the corners, but we made it purposely that way so that people could use it for anything, make it more useful in other situations. The walls, I mean, fans were just, clamoring for some kind of a containment system so that when you drop these cubes, you can do it and enjoy the experience without worrying, are the cubes going to be dropped too high and they're going to scatter off the table?
As the cat run off with half the dungeon.
The cat's going to run off with the piece. Well, this thing is just beautiful on the table and economically priced, and we expected it to sell well, and it is. So we call it the dungeon superstructure. It's 2 mats that combine together and 1 set of the walls that surrounds the entire area. And so these were some of the ways that we were like, how do we bolster this campaign so it's not just a single expansion? So we have that superstructure. We have a contest winner from earlier in the year where we created a new mini expansion for Dungeon Drop. And that's an add-on, so that's popular. We have a new promo pack with a new set of metal pieces. One of them is a flame demon, which is a new huge monster in the expansion. So now you have a 3D metal molded cube that looks like a flame demon, which is awesome. Yeah. And then we had a stretch goal to actually upgrade the promo pack to include a larger metal piece for Tavern Tales. So once again, kind of blending the 2 worlds and really trying to get, that connection point there. So it's like a beer mug, but it's shaped to look like our dragon in our game. We call it the Dragon Flagon. So
awesome.
Draglin Flagon. The name of our dragon is Draglin. So so we built in all these other new things into the campaign to hopefully increase the pledge amounts to maybe raise it up to get to an even keel. And then once we added Tavern Tales into the mix, the sky was the limit. We got great bundle deals, and most people are electing either the bundle of just the 2 games or the all-in bundle with the super.
They give me everything. I don't want to think.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like those options.
Yeah, just sharing.
It's going fantastic.
Yeah, just sharing some of the Kickstarter now. If I show folks, because it's on my Kickstarter account, you can see as you log in, it's all got it in the lovely GBP. That means I don't have to do any maths as anyone talks. And it's thundering along right now. We're 2,578 backers, and
wow, that's amazing support.
Yeah.
I love this. You got 124,500 out of we wanted 11,000 quid. It's like, that's wicked. That's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. We blew through the goal in 21 minutes, I think. The last time it was about 2 hours, and still, I mean, it just blows our mind. I mean, we know at this point, there's no question we've stumbled on something here that is special. This drop mechanic, and we're gonna really embrace that and push that, but that's not our only bag of tricks. So that's Tavern Tales is a completely different game model, and then Drop Drive will be a space themed game. It will have a drop mechanic, but again, it's still a different game from Dungeon Drop. So that's coming next year. And then there's another game called Queen's Quest, which is actually one of my own designs, and it's the design we thought we were going to launch first as a company, and then decided to do Dungeon Drop first, and then that exploded. Queen's Quest is a much bigger dungeon crawler cooperative, intended to be the most authentic roguelike on the tabletop. So the most authentic roguelike you can get, that kind of experience. But that's a big box game, and there's a small drop mechanic in it, but that's not its focus. So we have lots of diversification that we're already working on and planning for the future. We have some other companion games that we'd like to combine with this whole like combining of 2 games into one Kickstarter. You see it happen periodically, but it's not the most popular approach. And this was in large part an experiment. Like, how would this work here? And our belief was that if the stories are so intrinsically tied and the characters cross over perfectly, that there would just be enough love for the universe, not just the game. And that's what I think we're seeing very clearly. So far, tremendous positive experiment results.
That's amazing. And you've also got that lovely thing where actually you might be a fairly kick-ass adventurer and head through the dungeon to do all this, or you might be a little bit subpar and not terribly good as an adventurer, but you know what, I can spin you a tale that you will believe and everyone else will believe, which leaves the actual real dungeoneers going, oh, but I did that. It's lovely. It's a great way of playing it.
Exactly. Yep.
Super awesome as a story.
In fact, some of what we're doing now, some of the stretch goals from the first campaign were for things like a mimic treasure chest that starts chomping at you, or crystal golem that if you kill the crystal golem in the dungeon, he he counts, how does it work in Dungeon Drop? He counts as a gem of any color so that you can kind of like increase your quest sets that you're going for.
Yeah.
And so we're now kind of tying those over. So those are some of the stretch goals now in this campaign for Tavern Tales. So we'll do the same Crystal Golem, and it thematically works the same way. Mechanically, it's a little different, but same thing. Like if you claim to have killed the Crystal Golem in Tavern Tales.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if this stretch goal has been out there yet, so I might be talking about something that's coming out, but that's okay. If you kill the Crystal Golem in Tavern Tales or successfully claim that, he will add to one of your gem sets. And as Greg said, in Tavern Tales, it's a set collection game. So for me, if I can get that one additional pink gem on my set, that might be worth 6 or 8 points. Yeah. For you, it's only worth 1 or 2. So it just adds that extra layer of, because it's a wild, I can put it on any one of my sets, and it's different amounts of points depending on what's on the board. Maybe I really want another blue gem, but there's 5 other blue gems on the board already. So I'm not going to waste the wild putting it on the blue gem. I'm going to put it on the pink gem set. Anyway, there's all these kind of dynamics that start to emerge, and we're just pulling more and more and blending those worlds. It's great.
That's awesome.
It just gives you a really good opportunity to be creative. So they're using everything that the existing property has. If otherwise, it's just me sort of sat at a notebook going, okay, well, what numbers haven't we had yet? What is the sequence? And then suddenly something new comes in. Okay, what does a Crystal Golem mean to you? And you have to think, okay, I have no idea. We have nothing like this at all, but it completely opens your horizons. So it's been really, really fun.
Yeah. I wonder if you could just take a moment to kind of talk about how the game came from Gregory and over to phase shift kind of thing, because we've spoken with you, Gregory, a little bit about you took it to play test. It's taken a while to, like, it wasn't just a eureka moment in the bar. There was some graft that went into creating this, and you took the opportunity to pitch it to Jason after Virtually Expo, and you weren't, it wasn't all your eggs in one basket. It was, but this fabulous synergy that sort of landed with phase shift kind of there. Jason, like, what is it you're sort of looking for when folks can folks just pitch to games companies like yourself? Should they do it in, what's the process there?
Well, this is hard to answer. So first I'm going to tell you, we were not looking for another game.
Okay.
At one point we advertised on our site, we were looking for games. We ran a big design contest the previous year, looking for kind of the next great game that would push some dimensional boundary and really, or dimensional envelope and really match our company's brand. And then we found Dungeon Drop, which was fantastic. At this stage, we weren't looking for another game. We don't advertise right now that we're taking submissions. Gregory reached out to us. So, happy to always, Darren and I believe you should always be looking and just kind of seeing what's out there. If there's some gem, some real opportunity, we don't want to ignore it, right? We might want to jump on something, but we never actually expected in the here and now that we would have jumped on another game. This one, and we also did not have this idea of a companion game at that, in this way. But because the connection was so abundant and obvious, we worked very fast at that point with Greg to solidify it and then work to develop it over the next 2 months into our universe, which is what we did. All I can say is, for other designers like Greg who are out there, look for the brand that you think, has the right kind of audience and the right style for your game. In this case, it was the same age range, the same time frame to play the game, the same approachability. That was all important to it, because with those 3, we could combine this into one Kickstarter, which is what we did. If it was an hour-long game, we would not have done this. If it was not able to be in the Dungeon Drop universe, we would not have done this, and et cetera, et cetera. It had just everything aligned, and I think it's rare that it aligns so perfectly, but in this case it did. And we phase shift. We're always happy to take pitches. We're just pretty candid that our plate is pretty full for the next 2 years, solid. We have a lot of things planned. We have more things for for Dungeon Drop planned. We have Drop Drive. We have more things for Drop Drive planned after that. We have Queen's Quest. We have the companion game for one of those aforementioned. and et cetera, et cetera. So, and there's more stuff for Tavern Tales. So we're pretty full, but we have opened up this idea of companion games now, and we're very excited about what that can mean, and we anticipate doing that again. So there's room if there's the right kind of gem that just perfectly synergizes. There's room.
So part of the thing you need to consider when you're trying to pitch to companies is who and what, and not necessarily, like, we shouldn't be upset if right now you kind of say, look, this is not going to fit in our schedule. It's not a reflection on the game. It's, you know, I shouldn't go away back to Playtest UK and go, well, your advice was rubbish. I've just been turned down. You know,
you're going to get turned down way more times than you don't.
Definitely. You do get a lot of rejection, and I've got to say as well, it's not always the obvious fit, exactly as Jason says. I mean, the fit for the game, it just works as sort of the audience and the type of experience they want to have. But I've also pitched the game to companies where I thought, this is literally the game they have. They have 10 games which are in boxes of this size with this kind of player count that are this kind of game. And it's not quite as clear cut as that. You think that makes them the perfect company. It's not necessarily the case. They say, well, we've already had too many of that. We're looking to go a different way. We want something in a big box now. And you have no idea until you actually speak to people for the first time what it is they're actually looking for. I would have had no idea that Phase Shift were looking for or would consider something that was so different. But it seemed like it could have the same audience. So it's worth a pitch. So I've pitched around to a lot of companies who, on the surface, you think they would have been a better fit. But in reality, no one would have been a better fit.
No.
It does seem so. Cosmos Games has commented in the channel and said it does seem like a bit of a mind meld with this one, with your guys, with the numbers making it right, the playability and the audience and stuff. So yeah, that's tremendous.
So we're coming up to time to say goodbye to folks. I just want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity. We've put Phase Shift Games, your Facebook and your Instagram and your website up on the screen for folks to check out. The Kickstarter lasts until what date?
It is the last Thursday in October, which is October 29th.
29th. So it's time to get in and drop a pledge in there if you've liked what you've seen, and get involved. It's very popular. I've already, all those backers already, stretch goals for days, considered stretch goals for days, which is an important thing to remember. I found it just by searching Dungeon Drop in the Kickstarter bar. That was easy peasy. There it goes. Came up. Lovely picture of your previous Kickstarter as well, which says funded, which is always good. So easy to find. If people want to find you, Gregory, do you have a Twitter or anything someone can come and ask you some design questions?
I do have a very low-level Twitter. You can be found. I'm Gregory Skolnick. It's Greg Skull, I believe. GREGSKUL.
Oh, cool.
So we're trying to build it up at the moment. But yeah, I'm very happy to talk to anyone. I'd love to. Always love to talk about games.
And of course, Phase Shift Games. You are. I've seen all your tweets and all your Facebook, so we can find you. And we'll include this with a post up on the UK Games Expo website later on. I think today.
Yes. Yep. If you're on our newsletter, you'll be finding out a bit more about the Kickstarter and things with Phase Shift, and we'll be going out on our socials as well. So stay tuned on our channels. We're going to tell you more. It's really cool. It's a very cool game. And that's a wonderful expo story as well, guys. I hadn't realized that you guys had met at Virtually Expo. That's cracking. Wicked. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to give you guys some kudos with what you did for Virtually Expo. We watched how Origins unfolded. We watched how Gen Con unfolded. We did not participate in those. I kind of cursorily I did some live streams for some folks with Gen Con, but that was it. And we chose not to participate in Essen for financial reasons, just very, very expensive. But we were kind of all in on yours, and the experience was fantastic. And we I mean, not just Greg, but that was the highlight, was meeting Greg and having this meeting of the stars come together. But so much else about the experience was tremendous. We loved it. We're all in for anything you guys do. So thank you.
That's very, very cool. It's lovely to have you.
Epic. I'm looking forward to seeing Tavern Tales and the expansions at whatever event Expo puts on in 2021. I'm going to come and have a look, come and have a poke.
Physical show.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you again, Jason. It's lovely to meet you, Gregory. I really do enjoy the dungeon drop style. It's really cute. Maybe when this is a time I can come and visit Kate, we can play some dungeon drop on your kitchen.
That would be very
That'd
cool.
Be cool. We'll take it down to Ready Steady Roll. On our
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, okay, we've got this plan now. We just need to pitch it to Richard and Tony. But yeah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you again. And folks, go and check out the Kickstarter. Have a look and check out what's happening over there. We'll be back next week. I think we've got an interesting charity guest.
We do indeed.
Yeah.
Looking at Raise Your Game for Dementia.
Yeah, so that will be very interesting to have a chat with those folks about that. If you've got a friendly local game store or a friendly local game cafe, do let them know we're here to tell the world how awesome they are, because some of them are far too modest and we need to nip that in the bud. And it has been a pleasure chatting with you. We'll be back next week. I think I've said thanks about 10 times now, but I'll say it again. Thanks for watching, folks. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.